What if I told you that your biggest trading mistake is trying to predict the market instead of preparing to perform in it? That your edge isn't the ability to be right, but the consistency in executing well when the opportunity appears. Most traders chase the idea of knowing where the market will go. They study indicators, signals, economic calendars, and price action patterns, all in the hope of being right. But Brett Steenbarger says this: your advantage doesn't come from your forecasts. It comes from how reliably you can act when a recognizable setup appears. You're not a forecaster, you're a performer. That's your identity, that's your leverage, that's your edge. Let's get honest for a second. How many times have you had the right idea, the right direction, but got stopped out anyway? How many times has hesitation cost you? It wasn't about your strategy, it was about you. Performance, execution, presence. That's your real edge. According to Steenbarger, high-performance trading is about replicating what works for you under real-world pressure. He compares traders to athletes and performers. A tennis player doesn't need to predict the next shot. They need to position, prepare, and execute when the moment arrives. You're no different. You don't control the market, but you do control your preparation, your mindset, and your execution. This idea flips everything. It means your preparation, your sleep, your psychology, your self-talk all matter as much as your charts. It means that developing your internal environment is as vital as mastering the external one. Steenbarger insists that elite traders operate from a state of readiness, not certainty, readiness. They don't chase every candle. They wait for alignment within themselves and within the market. They follow a process. They practice execution, not prediction. Here's the truth no one tells you. Most traders lose not because their setups fail, but because they fail to stick to their edge. They let doubt creep in. They get greedy. They trade angry. They over-leverage. They revenge trade. In other words, they perform poorly. And the only way to beat that is to stop focusing on being right and start focusing on executing right. That's the shift Steenbarger demands. Stop treating trading like a guessing game. Start treating it like a performance game. If a singer gets nervous and misses their notes, no one blames the song. If a trader chokes under pressure, don't blame the market. Own your performance. Review your process. Refine your edge. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to perform better, more consistently, over time. That's your true edge. The one thing you control. And here's where it gets empowering. You can train performance. You can rehearse execution. You can strengthen discipline. You can build mental routines. That's where your focus should go. Because when you stop trying to predict and start preparing to perform, everything changes. You might think talent is something you either have or you don't, but that belief will keep you average forever. Brett Steenbarger doesn't deny that some traders are naturally gifted with sharp pattern recognition or high stress tolerance. But here's the truth. Talent only takes you so far. What separates the elite from the merely competent is how well they track, measure, and refine that talent over time. Think of it like this. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you don't review your own behavior, you'll never change it. And if you don't track your performance, you'll keep mistaking randomness for skill. You want to improve your trading? Then you need to become a data scientist of your own mind. Steenbarger makes it clear. Professional development in trading demands performance measurement. That means journaling your setups, tracking your wins, documenting your losses, rating your execution quality, and doing it consistently, not just after a losing week. Why? Because traders forget. They distort their memories. They justify poor actions. They repeat mistakes. But data doesn't lie. Numbers don't have egos. Logs don't get defensive. They just reflect what is. In Steenbarger's view, the traders who grow the fastest are the ones who operate like elite athletes or high-performance musicians. They record everything. They review tape. They simulate scenarios. They run drills. They test the edge under pressure, and then they review the feedback and do it again. That's how performance becomes reproducible. That's how instincts become reliable. That's how discipline becomes second nature. You don't magically get better. You build better, one tracked behavior at a time. The takeaway? Stop hiding behind the idea of just needing more screen time. You've had enough screen time. What you lack is reviewed screen time. What you lack is accountability. What you lack is structure. And all of that is trainable. You can start right now. Build a spreadsheet. Track your setups by category. Rate your discipline on a scale from 1 to 5. Note your emotional state before, during, and after trades. Find your patterns, not just in the market, but in yourself. That's how you train talent. That's how you turn potential into progress. This isn't just about journaling for the sake of it. This is about transforming your trading from reactive guesswork into structured growth. Ask yourself, what do the best performers in any domain do? They don't just wing it. They obsess over feedback. They refine execution. They stretch their capacity to notice, to adapt, and to correct. That's what you need. Every trading session contains lessons, but most traders are too distracted or emotional to capture them. You won't remember how you felt when you sized up too fast. You won't recall why you skipped your stop, but your journal will. Your logbook becomes your coach, your scoreboard, your mirror. And this is where the breakthrough happens. Once you've tracked enough trades, patterns emerge. You start to see how your best trades come when you're calm, when you followed your plan, when you waited for confirmation. You notice how impulsive decisions always cost you. You stop believing in luck and start believing in data. And when that shift happens, when you begin trusting your journal more than your memory, you've crossed into professional territory. Steenbarger isn't just giving advice, he's laying out a framework. Treat your trading like a business. Review performance daily. Hold yourself accountable to measurable standards. Look for marginal improvements, not overnight miracles. Track your edge the way a scientist tracks experiments. That's how you stop gambling and start compounding skill. Talent without tracking is a story. Talent with tracking is a system, and systems win. You're not going to become a great trader by staring at charts. You're going to get there by immersing yourself in thousands of market moments until pattern recognition becomes second nature. Brett Steenbarger hammers this home. True edge comes from exposure, repeated, focused, mindful exposure. It's the same way a firefighter walks into a room and senses danger before the flames appear. It's not magic. It's accumulated reps. The human brain is a pattern detection machine, but only if you train it. If you constantly change systems, never document what you saw, or avoid reviewing what happened, you're starving your brain of the one thing it needs most: reference points. This is where most aspiring traders fall short. They don't stick with a process long enough to develop pattern sensitivity. They hop systems, they jump styles, they throw away a week of tracking just because of 2 losing trades. But the pros? They commit. They go deep. They run drills. They replay days and weeks in their mind. They make it a habit to mentally rehearse what they'll do when the setup appears. Steenbarger says performance is grounded in simulation and immersion. That means reviewing charts after hours. That means building a playbook of common setups. That means watching the same pattern across 50 charts until your mind sees it before it fully forms. That's how you build confidence, not by hoping you'll see it live, but by conditioning your mind to never miss it. It might feel tedious, it might feel repetitive, but so does piano practice, so does sprinting drills, so does reviewing game tape. Performance doesn't care how you feel. Performance respects preparation, and preparation is built on repetition. This is how you get better. You stop chasing novelty and start building fluency. Think about your best trading day. Can you describe the setup, the context, the market behavior before and after? If you can't recall that instantly, you're not immersed enough. Pattern recognition isn't a bonus skill. It's the difference between reactive trading and anticipatory trading. Here's the secret. The more you internalize those patterns, the less effort it takes to execute. What once required analysis becomes instinct, not gut feeling, trained instinct. And that's a key difference. Gut feeling is emotional impulse. Trained instinct is hardwired recognition born from relentless exposure. This kind of immersion is how chess grandmasters know the right move in 3 seconds. It's how surgeons know when something's wrong before the scan confirms it. And it's how elite traders know when to press and when to stand down. Steenbarger pushes you to build this muscle. Don't just trade. Study the tape. Print out your best setups. Annotate them. Rehearse them mentally every day before the open. When you see a false breakout, ask yourself, how did this start? Where were the clues? What did I feel in the moment? What did I miss? You're not just a participant in the market. You're a student of its language. The better you speak that language, the more fluent your reactions will become. And this is where your confidence will come from. Not from P&L spikes, not from a lucky week, but from repetition and deep familiarity. You'll stop second guessing because you've seen it before. You'll enter with precision because your brain has already fired this pattern thousands of times in simulation. And that level of preparation will separate you from the 90% who are still reacting instead of anticipating. They're hoping. You're recognizing. So immerse yourself. Get obsessed with market structure. Drill your setups like a fighter trains combinations. Record yourself explaining what you see. Teach it out loud. The more you engage your mind in the repetition of real market learning, the closer you get to true expertise. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to recognize what the market is whispering and act on it before it becomes a shout. The market doesn't care about your feelings, but your feelings absolutely affect how you experience the market. This is the paradox at the heart of trading psychology. Brett Steenbarger doesn't sugarcoat it. The market is neutral, but you're not. Your beliefs, your biases, your expectations, they shape your perception of price action in real time. Two traders can see the exact same chart and make completely different decisions. Why? Because they're projecting their mindset onto the market. And if you don't see your mind clearly, the market will expose it harshly. The truth is, most trading errors are not technical. They're psychological. You hesitate because you fear being wrong. You exit early because you can't stand to lose unrealized gains. You add size because you're chasing a feeling, not a setup. And worst of all, you repeat these behaviors because you haven't trained yourself to recognize them in the moment. Steenbarger warns, if you don't learn to observe your mind while you trade, your mind will hijack your trades. You'll overreact to losses. You'll cling to hope. You'll chase heat. And in the end, it won't be your strategy that failed. It'll be your mindset. Steenbarger teaches you that the market is your mirror. It reflects back your emotional patterns. Are you feeling anxious? The market will look dangerous. Are you desperate to make money? You'll see setups that don't exist. Are you feeling invincible after a win streak? The market will tempt you to overtrade. Every tick starts to look like an invitation or a threat. And in that state, you're not trading the market. You're trading your internal state. That's why developing emotional awareness is non-negotiable, not optional, not nice to have. It's required. You can't eliminate emotion, but you can train your mind to work with it. That starts with self-observation. Steenbarger is adamant. If you don't know what your triggers are, you'll never tame them. Are you more impulsive after a loss? Do you get anxious when your P&L goes negative? Does size make you freeze? The answers are already in your trading journal, if you're honest. The next step is to interrupt the pattern. This is where most traders fail. They feel the same feelings, repeat the same mistakes, and hope results will change. Steenbarger teaches traders to insert awareness between trigger and action. That's the power move. You feel the urge, and instead of reacting, you notice it, you name it, you pause. And in that pause, you reclaim control. Performance psychology in trading is about proactive mindset management. Steenbarger introduces techniques that help traders center themselves, breathing routines before the open, visualization of process instead of outcome, affirmations not of success, but of clarity, presence, and discipline. You're not there to make money. You're there to execute a process. If you follow that, profits follow. But chase the profits directly, and the process falls apart. This sounds abstract until you live it. You've probably had days where you were mentally off and the trades reflected it. You've also had moments of deep clarity when execution felt effortless. That's not randomness. That's state. And state can be trained. Here's where it becomes practical. Create a pre-trade checklist that includes your mental state. Rate your focus. Ask yourself if you're forcing a setup or genuinely seeing one. Record your intentions before entering a trade. Then, at the end of the day, review not just your trades, but your headspace. Steenbarger's traders don't just evaluate win-loss ratios, they grade emotional performance. Were you calm under pressure? Did you stick to your process? Did you honor your stop? Those answers reveal whether you're building a performance mindset or just reacting to market noise. The most elite traders in Steenbarger's world don't ignore emotion. They've just turned emotional awareness into a trading edge. While others are blinded by fear or greed, they notice the emotion, accept it, and refocus on the plan. They use tools, meditation, journaling, breath control, even real-time talk-throughs to anchor themselves. Trading becomes a mental dojo. Every session, a test of inner strength. Every moment, a chance to reinforce discipline. This is how mindset stops being a buzzword and starts becoming a competitive advantage. Here's the shift. Your job isn't to eliminate emotion, it's to lead yourself through it. That's real mastery. That's what separates you from every other trader panicking at their screen. And it's available to you, not through willpower, but through structure, through repetition, through treating your psychology like part of your edge. Because it is. Steenbarger says it best, you can't trade with someone else's mindset. So stop copying someone else's strategy and thinking it'll work if your psychology is fragile. Think of every trade as a psychological test, not of the market's behavior, but of your own. Did you chase that breakout because it was truly your setup, or because you feared missing out? Did you cut your winner short because you followed your rules, or because you saw a red candle and panicked? Steenbarger makes it clear. Every trade reflects a mindset, and your mindset can either be trained or left vulnerable to the chaos of the moment. Most traders never develop this awareness. They think their problem is strategy, but it's actually self-regulation. That's why journaling has to include more than just entry and exit. You need to record what was happening inside as much as what happened outside. Over time, this creates a personal emotional map. You start seeing patterns. You trade best on quiet mornings after journaling. You fall apart when you skip your routine. You hesitate when your last trade was a loss. This self-awareness becomes a tool. It lets you predict yourself before the market even moves. And that, Steenbarger argues, is the real advantage. Elite traders build rituals to reinforce this. They have mental reset buttons, walks between sessions, breathing exercises, talking through trades aloud to stay conscious. These aren't soft skills, they're performance gear. Just as a runner ties their shoes the same way before a race, a trader uses rituals to ground themselves before risk. Steenbarger calls this trading state awareness. It's not just being calm, it's being primed, focused, alert but not anxious, energized but not erratic. The difference is subtle, but it's the line between flow and failure. The takeaway is this: don't just focus on your charts, focus on your internal screen. What's playing there is more powerful than anything on TradingView. If you don't control that movie, it will control you. You'll talk yourself into bad trades. You'll sabotage good ones. You'll miss setups, not because they weren't there, but because you weren't. Mindset isn't fluff, it's the architecture of execution. Steenbarger isn't selling you a motivational speech, he's warning you. The markets will find your psychological weaknesses and exploit them. So patch your inner code, fortify your mind, build a mindset that can withstand storms. That's the real performance edge. That's how you trade strong. You keep searching for the next big setup, the perfect entry, the secret indicator. But what if your real edge isn't in the market, but in your morning routine? Brett Steenbarger drills this into every trader he coaches. Routine is your superpower. The way you start your day, the habits you build, the structure you create around your trading, those are the things that separate amateurs from professionals. The market may be uncertain, but your process shouldn't be. In fact, the more uncertain the market gets, the more critical your routine becomes. The most consistent traders Steenbarger has worked with don't rely on inspiration or motivation. They rely on systems. They know what time they wake up, what they review before the open, which setups they're watching, and how they will respond to different scenarios. Their routine is a stabilizer. It removes emotional noise and replaces it with clarity. And the truth is, if your routine isn't clear, your decisions won't be either. You'll hesitate. You'll improvise under pressure. You'll break your plan without even realizing it. But with a strong routine, your edge becomes repeatable. It becomes something you can rely on. Routines aren't just about discipline, they're about priming performance. A pre-market routine helps you align your mind before the noise begins. A midday check-in allows you to course correct if you've drifted. An end-of-day review helps you extract lessons before the emotions fade. And when you repeat this every day, it becomes a rhythm, a beat, a psychological anchor in an unpredictable game. Steenbarger suggests having templates, a daily prep checklist, a journaling format, a trade review sheet. Whatever tools keep your process tight, use them. Why is this so effective? Because routines reduce cognitive load. Instead of burning energy on decisions like, what should I look for today? You walk into the session already prepared. You know your top watch. You've rehearsed scenarios. You've visualized key levels. This frees up mental bandwidth to focus on execution. While other traders are reacting to news or scanning aimlessly, you're calmly waiting for your moment. This isn't rigidity, it's readiness, and readiness wins. Steenbarger also emphasizes the emotional benefit of routines. When you start your day grounded, perhaps with a few minutes of silence, some focused breathing, a review of positive self-statements, you inoculate yourself against the chaos. You're less likely to chase, less likely to tilt, because you've reinforced your identity before the market tries to shake it. Your routine becomes a quiet declaration. This is who I am. This is how I trade. And that self-definition is powerful. Here's a mistake traders make, thinking routines are for beginners, that once you're good enough, you can improvise. Steenbarger flips that. The more advanced you become, the more critical structure becomes. In fact, elite traders have tighter routines than novices. Not because they're rigid, but because they've seen what happens when they stray. They've watched their discipline unravel on days they didn't prepare. They've seen confidence erode when they skip review. So they respect the process. Let's get practical. Your routine doesn't have to be complicated, but it must be consistent. Maybe you start with reviewing your sleep and energy level, then a quick scan of macro news. Then you update your trading journal, revisit your best setups, and identify top watchlist candidates. You set alerts, you visualize your trades, you note emotional intentions. I will be patient, I will size appropriately, I will not force. All of this can take 20 to 30 minutes, but the impact lasts all day. And after the close, another short ritual. Capture what worked. Identify one mistake and one improvement. Review your emotional state during each trade, then shut it down. Step away. Let your brain rest. Steenbarger is firm about this. Mental fatigue is real, and burnout destroys consistency. By building a shutdown routine, you protect your energy. You create separation between the trading self and the personal self. You stop carrying trades in your head while eating dinner. You become sustainable. Over time, your routine evolves into a form of identity. You stop being someone who does trading and start becoming a trader. Your behavior, your rhythm, your discipline, they reinforce that identity every day. And when you slip, your routine catches you. It's the safety net. It brings you back. This is the real power of structure. It's not about being robotic, it's about being resilient. The market will test you. It will pull you into noise, emotion, drama. Your routine is the rope that keeps you grounded. The traders who fail aren't necessarily less talented. They're just less anchored. Their day has no rhythm. Their energy is scattered. Their execution is random. But yours doesn't have to be. So build it, test it, refine it. Don't wait for the market to get easier. Build a routine that makes you stronger. Because in trading, the most powerful setup isn't found on a chart. It's found in the mirror at 6:30 a.m. when you decide who you're going to be before the bell even rings. There's also a hidden benefit to routines that most traders overlook. They become emotional memory cues. Over time, just performing the steps of your pre-market routine starts to cue the mindset you've built. It's like muscle memory for your mind. Your brain associates those steps, reviewing your watch list, repeating affirmations, scanning for setups, with focused, disciplined action. That's why breaking routine is so dangerous. You think it's just a skip checklist, but your brain interprets it as a loss of control. And if you're trading from home, this becomes even more crucial. Without a structured environment like a trading desk or team, your routine becomes your boss, your coach, your accountability system. It's what keeps you from drifting, from waking up late and chasing setups cold, from checking your phone instead of reviewing your trades. It's the structure that protects you from yourself. Steenbarger's core message is simple: don't leave your performance to chance. The market is too fast, too complex, too unforgiving. But your routine, that's the one thing you can control every single day. Master it, and you master yourself. You've read books, you've watched webinars, you've followed every trading guru you can find, but you're still inconsistent. Why? Because education isn't enough. Brett Steenbarger makes it painfully clear: training beats learning. If you think consuming content is the same as building skill, you're lying to yourself. The market doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what you can do under pressure. And what you can do under pressure depends on what you've trained for. Education gives you ideas. Training builds instincts. Most traders never cross that line. They fill notebooks with strategies, but they never simulate execution. They read psychology tips, but never rehearse decision-making. They know what they should do, but when the market moves fast, they fall apart. Why? Because the idea was never trained into action. Steenbarger draws a sharp line between knowledge and performance. One is mental, the other is behavioral. You can't think your way into consistency. You must act your way into it, over and over, until the action becomes natural. That's where training comes in. Training is deliberate, repetitive, focused on execution, not theory. Steenbarger's best traders treat their development like athletes or military operators. They run drills, they practice execution, they simulate what they'll do in every market condition. And they do it until hesitation disappears, until clarity replaces confusion. Training doesn't mean going live and risking capital on every idea. It means slowing down, breaking trades into components, practicing small slices of the process: entries, stops, risk, patience. It's slow work, but it builds fast reactions. The traders who accelerate their learning are the ones who use tools, simulators, playback software, journals. They recreate their mistakes to rehearse corrections. They script out ideal behaviors. They visualize step-by-step actions in specific market conditions. This is where the game changes. You don't just watch candles, you train for them. You don't just read about psychology, you build it in the moment it counts. Training bridges the gap between what you know and what you actually do. Most importantly, training desensitizes fear. The more times you execute a stop-loss in simulation, the less painful it becomes in real life. The more you practice wading through a setup in replay, the less tempted you are to jump the gun when the market is live. Training rewires your nervous system. It builds emotional tolerance. It reinforces identity. You're no longer someone who panics. You've practiced poise. And just like any serious practice, training requires structure. Steenbarger recommends creating playbooks, sets of scenarios with specific steps you drill over and over. If X happens, I do Y. If this breakout fails, I cut here. If I miss the trade, I don't chase. I do this instead. The purpose is to remove indecision, to train conviction. And when you hit a losing streak, you don't panic. You return to drills. You rebuild trust through action, not theory. Here's where most traders fall short. They think training is for beginners. They think experience will replace it. But experience without feedback is just repetition. It doesn't improve performance. It just ingrains bad habits. Steenbarger warns, you can become worse with time if you're not training the right things. That's why every elite trader he's worked with has a training loop: action, feedback, refinement. Again and again and again. He gives the example of a trader who struggled with chasing trades. Instead of just telling the trader to stop chasing, Steenbarger designed exercises. The trader had to review charts and identify missed opportunities without regret. Then, simulate patient entries. Then, journal the emotions that arose. Over weeks, the behavior changed, not because the trader wanted to stop chasing, but because they trained patience. This is the real work, the uncomfortable, unsexy grind of transformation. And if you're serious, you'll treat each day as a session in this dojo. Not a day to prove yourself, but to improve yourself. That's the shift. You're not here to win every trade. You're here to build capacity, to execute cleaner, to think slower, to stay present longer. Every trade is a rep. Every mistake is a signal. Every pattern is a drillable sequence. Steenbarger pushes traders to deconstruct their process like engineers. Where did focus break? Where did emotion hijack? What needs more training? There's no room for ego here. You'll only grow if you're willing to admit, I'm not executing well enough yet. Let me train that. That humility is power. It frees you from shame. It puts you back in control. Because once you believe you can train your way out of weakness, there's no weakness that holds you back. He even recommends recording yourself while trading. Talk through the setups, narrate your thoughts, mark the moment hesitation crept in. Review the tape, not just the market moves, but your mind during them. You'll see where tension rises, where doubt enters, where clarity disappears. That's your training zone. That's where skill is born. And this brings us to the bottom line. If you want to become a high-performing trader, stop collecting strategies and start practicing behaviors. Stop reading and start rehearsing. Turn every weakness into a drill, every mistake into a module. Build training into your daily flow. 10 minutes of deliberate simulation beats 2 hours of mindless screen time. Because the trader who trains wins over the trader who just shows up. Steenbarger's not against education. He's against passive consumption. The brain forgets what it doesn't use. But if you embed knowledge through action, if you train it, it sticks, it scales, it compounds. And that's the path to mastery. So what's your training routine? What skill are you working on today? That's your real trading plan. And if you're not training, you're not improving. You're just trading. Make the shift. Stop learning. Start training. That's how performance is built. You can only go so far alone. That's not weakness. It's biology. Brett Steenbarger makes a bold claim. Coaching is the secret weapon behind many top traders. Not because coaches give magical strategies, but because they create reflection, accountability, and challenge. If you're serious about accelerating performance, you need feedback. You need mirrors. You need someone who can see the blind spots you've rationalized for years. Left on your own, you'll plateau. That's the truth. You'll default to the path of least resistance. You'll avoid your weaknesses, double down on what's comfortable, and slowly cement habits that limit your growth. Steenbarger has watched countless traders get stuck, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked outside eyes. Coaching changes that. A good coach doesn't just tell you what to do. They ask the hard questions. They hold you to a higher standard. They listen between your words. They notice the hesitation, the patterns, the emotional leaks you don't catch. And most of all, they believe in a version of you that's not here yet, but is possible if you do the work. This is why mentorship matters. Whether it's a paid coach, a trading partner, or a mastermind group, when you bring your process into the light, it sharpens. When someone expects more of you, you rise. When you speak your process out loud, it reveals cracks. Steenbarger often assigns traders to peer review each other's journals, not to criticize, but to observe, to ask why, to open space for clarity and correction. And here's the beauty. Coaching isn't just for new traders. The higher you climb, the more critical it becomes. Think about elite athletes, champions. They all have coaches. Not because they need to be told the basics, but because high performance is a moving target. There's always another level, always a place you get stuck, always a habit that used to work, but now holds you back. Without coaching, you stay in your comfort zone. With it, you stretch. And in trading, stretching means survival. Steenbarger shares stories of traders who transformed not because they learned a new indicator, but because a coach challenged their assumptions. One trader thought he was patient until daily feedback revealed he was constantly forcing trades in the first 15 minutes. Another believed she was disciplined until journaling sessions with her mentor showed how she changed stop-loss levels under stress. These breakthroughs didn't happen in isolation. They happened through exposure. Coaching exposes you to your own patterns, your habits, your truths, and that exposure creates momentum. Once you start seeing your blind spots, you become addicted to growth. You stop defending your flaws and start designing new habits. You stop hiding in isolation and start leaning into feedback. This is the professional mindset. You stop needing to feel right and start wanting to get better. Now, here's the truth. Not everyone can afford a private coach, but Steenbarger says that's no excuse. The real magic of coaching isn't the title, it's the function. Find a peer, create a trade review circle, join a trader accountability group, build a weekly call with someone who gets it. The key is structured feedback. You show your trades, you talk through decisions, you hear perspectives, you commit to improvements, you show up again. This rhythm accelerates growth far beyond solo journaling. Because here's the trap. Your brain will rationalize your mistakes when no one is watching. You'll gloss over exits, you'll justify rule breaking, you'll mentally edit the past. But when you know you're going to explain your trade to someone else, suddenly you think sharper. You plan deeper, you take notes, you slow down. Coaching doesn't just correct behavior, it prevents poor behavior. Steenbarger's work with institutional traders reveals something fascinating. The best traders aren't the ones with the biggest brains. They're the ones with the strongest feedback loops. They seek review. They ask for pushback. They want to be challenged. They have systems around their growth. And coaching becomes a natural part of that system. He even recommends recording your own sessions and listening back like an athlete would review game tape. What did you say at 9:45 when volatility spiked? What emotion came through? Where did you lose focus? That self-coaching becomes a mirror. It lets you refine not just what you do, but how you do it. This is what high performers do across every field. They break performance into layers. They rehearse. They seek critique. They remove ego from feedback. Because they know the truth, there is no mastery without mirrors. No elite performance without pressure and perspective. Let's talk implementation. Start simple. Set up a weekly review call with a trusted trader. Each of you brings 2-3 trades. You walk through the reasoning, the execution, the emotion, the result. You ask, what could I do better? Where did I hesitate? What did I miss? Over time, this becomes sacred space. A training dojo, a performance lab. You'll find patterns you never saw, habits you forgot, emotional spikes that need calming. And because someone else is walking with you, you'll feel less alone. Trading is lonely, but it doesn't have to be. Steenbarger argues that community isn't just comforting, it's a competitive edge. Isolation dulls awareness. Connection sharpens it. Now here's the hard truth. Some traders avoid coaching because it threatens their ego. They don't want to feel judged. They don't want to feel exposed. But that resistance is exactly why they need it. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort. And coaching is just structured discomfort. Productive pain, the kind that forces evolution. So ask yourself, who's watching your growth? Who challenges your assumptions? Who pushes you past your limits? If the answer is no one, you've found your ceiling. Add a coach, add a partner, add a group, add anything that breaks your feedback vacuum. Because if you want to go further, you can't go alone. And here's the final insight from Steenbarger. Coaching isn't just external, it's internal. Over time, you learn to become your own coach. You build an internal voice that doesn't just critique, but corrects. That doesn't shame, but sharpens. And that voice only develops when you've been coached, when someone else models the dialogue until it becomes your own. So don't wait. Create the feedback loop now. Build the habit of being seen, of being reviewed, of being stretched. That's how professionals think. That's how consistency grows. That's how performance compounds. Coaching isn't a luxury, it's a tool. Use it. Most traders chase wins. They obsess over green days, celebrate every big move, and spiral after losses. But Brett Steenbarger flips the script. The goal is not to win. The goal is to improve. When you make feedback the core of your process, everything changes. You stop measuring success by dollars and start measuring it by decisions. And that's the shift that turns a trader into a performer. Think about it. You can have a winning day while making terrible decisions. You can also have a losing day that reflects incredible discipline and execution. If you only look at P&L, you'll miss the truth. Steenbarger trains traders to ask better questions. Did I follow my process? Did I execute my edge with precision? Did I adjust with awareness? That's real feedback. That's how you grow. The most powerful feedback loop is internal, but it has to be intentional. It won't come from randomly thinking about your trades. It comes from structured review. Steenbarger pushes traders to build daily, weekly, and monthly feedback systems. These include performance scorecards, emotional logs, trade reviews, and self-coaching journals. Every trade is data. Every emotion is insight. Every pattern is a signal. And this isn't just about correcting mistakes. It's about reinforcing what works. Feedback isn't punishment. It's pattern recognition. It's reinforcement of the identity you want to build. When you review a day where you stayed calm, followed the plan, and honored your stop, you're wiring that behavior into your nervous system. You're telling your brain, do more of that. Feedback builds habits, and habits create consistency. Steenbarger often reminds traders, growth doesn't come from results, it comes from refinement. Refinement only happens when you examine your performance with honesty, without ego. That means reviewing not just the outcomes, but the decisions that led there. Did you take a trade too early? Did you size up too soon? Did you exit out of fear? These aren't failures. They're feedback points, but only if you're willing to look. Here's the problem. Most traders don't want feedback. They want reassurance. They look for confirmation they're doing okay. They seek excuses to explain losses. But growth lives in discomfort. Steenbarger teaches traders to love the discomfort of review, because that's where awareness begins. And without awareness, there is no change. The best traders track metrics you never see on a chart: hesitation time, emotional state during execution, clarity of decision-making, alignment with pre-market plan. They rate these factors. They look for improvement over time. That's how you separate skill from noise. Your edge isn't just in your system, it's in how well you execute it. And feedback is the mirror that shows you the difference. Steenbarger even recommends creating a mistake index. Track the number of unforced errors you make each week. Things like revenge trading, ignoring stops, trading outside your playbook. Your goal isn't to eliminate all mistakes, it's to reduce their frequency, to make each error a little less common, a little less intense. That's progress. That's compounding performance. And don't just track problems, track progress. When you journal a trade where you sized correctly, followed the plan, and exited with discipline, celebrate it. Reinforce it. These moments are feedback gold. They remind you of who you're becoming. And they build the confidence that lasts longer than any win streak. Your journal becomes your coach. Your spreadsheet becomes your mirror. Your process becomes your edge. And when that happens, something powerful shifts. You stop obsessing over how much you made and start focusing on how well you traded. That's when consistency begins. The emotional side of feedback is just as important. Steenbarger encourages traders to log emotional spikes, not to shame them, but to understand them. Why did you feel anxious after that first loss? Why did you hesitate on that A-plus setup? Why did your energy drop after lunch? These are real signals, and they're feedback. Emotional awareness is performance data. You might think this sounds like overkill, but it's the opposite. It's precision. Imagine an Olympic sprinter ignoring their stride length or reaction time. You'd never accept that. So why do traders ignore the psychological and behavioral metrics that define their results? Feedback makes the invisible visible, and what you can see, you can improve. This is how you build resilience. Not by toughing it out, but by building a system that learns. Every red day becomes a case study. Every drawdown becomes an upgrade. You stop fearing losses because they're no longer verdicts. They're just feedback. Steenbarger warns that without feedback, you'll drift. Slowly, silently. You'll get sloppy, then call it normal. You'll trade tired, then call it grind. You'll accept average, then call it realistic. Feedback breaks that spiral. It slaps you awake. It says, this isn't you. Fix it. But feedback only works when you welcome it, when you ask for it, when you sit with it, when you use it. That takes humility. That takes honesty. And that takes commitment. So here's your challenge. Create your feedback ritual. Start simple. At the end of every session, answer 3 questions. 1, what did I do well? 2, what can I improve? 3, what's one thing I'll focus on tomorrow? That's it. 10 minutes a day. Over time, this becomes your edge because most traders won't do it. They'll wing it, you'll review it, and from there, build upward. Create weekly summaries, monthly reflections, mistake logs, emotional scorecards. Turn your trading life into a feedback machine. Because the trader who learns from today always beats the one who just hopes tomorrow is better. This is how you get resilient. Not by avoiding pain, but by extracting wisdom. Not by winning every day, but by learning every day. Steenbarger doesn't promise perfection. He promises progression if you build the loop, if you track the right signals, if you show up with honesty. In the end, trading is not just about execution. It's about evolution, and feedback is how you evolve. So stop chasing perfect trades. Start building perfect feedback loops, because the fastest way to grow your P&L is to grow your process. You don't just trade markets, you trade yourself. Every decision you make is filtered through your identity, your beliefs, your habits, your expectations. Brett Steenbarger makes this clear. If you want consistent performance, you need a consistent self. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. The idea of self-development sounds vague, but in trading, it's painfully practical. Your identity drives your actions. If you see yourself as a disciplined, focused professional, you'll behave accordingly. But if you see yourself as inconsistent, emotional, or unlucky, you'll unconsciously act out those roles. This is where the real work begins, upgrading your internal model. Steenbarger emphasizes that high-level performance is identity-based. Your trading plan matters. Your edge matters. But if your internal identity conflicts with your goals, you'll sabotage yourself every time. That's why some traders quit after every drawdown, because deep down, they don't believe they belong here. That's why others grind for years without improving, because they've accepted mediocrity as their truth. To change your trading, you must change your story. Who are you becoming? How do you think about discipline, failure, risk? Are you a learner or a gambler, a craftsman or an adrenaline addict? The story you tell yourself will determine how you react under pressure. And pressure is where identity gets revealed. The traders who thrive are the ones who build psychological capital. They don't just protect financial capital. They invest in self-awareness, self-trust, and self-belief. And they do it deliberately. Psychological capital, as Steenbarger frames it, is your inner reserve. It's what helps you bounce back from a tough loss, stay grounded during a hot streak, and remain focused when your edge takes time to play out. And here's the key. It's not fixed. You can build it just like you build your watch list or trade journal, but it requires the same commitment. You can't build confidence without evidence, and that evidence comes from consistent behavior. When you track your good trades, not just profitable ones, but well-executed ones, you create proof. When you review your disciplined decisions, you build trust. When you own your mistakes and correct them, you build strength. This isn't self-help fluff. It's high-performance architecture. Athletes call it mental toughness. Traders call it consistency. Steenbarger calls it identity alignment. One powerful technique he shares is identity journaling. Every morning, you write not just your game plan, but your internal posture. Today, I trade like a calm, focused executor. Today, I manage risk like a professional. Today, I accept losses without story. These aren't affirmations, they're reminders of the identity you're reinforcing. And over time, repetition creates wiring. You start acting from intention, not reaction. Another technique is visual feedback. Steenbarger recommends collecting screenshots, not just of chart setups, but of you trading. Webcam recordings, voice memos, Journal entries during market hours. These become mirrors. You can study your posture, tone, energy, focus. Just like a basketball player watches tape to improve footwork, you review your performance through the lens of identity. Who are you becoming? What behaviors define your process? And then there's the emotional narrative. How do you talk to yourself after a loss? Is it, I'm so stupid? Or, that was off plan? What's the lesson? Your inner voice is shaping your identity every day. Traders who beat themselves up are training their brain to expect failure. Traders who stay curious are training for resilience. Steenbarger notes that most performance problems are actually identity conflicts. A trader who values freedom might resist structure. A trader who chases excitement might avoid routine. A trader who fears failure might avoid accountability. Until you resolve these conflicts, your system will always be at war with your self-image. So how do you build a high-performance identity? First, awareness. Know what values drive you. Know what beliefs limit you. Know what story you're telling yourself. Second, intention. Choose the identity you want. Design habits that reflect it. Build routines that express it. Third, reinforcement. Journal it, practice it, track it, review it. Feedback makes identity sticky, and this work compounds. When you act like a disciplined trader, even when you don't feel like one, you begin to become one. When you honor your plan in small trades, you train for big ones. When you manage yourself with care, you build the emotional durability to handle market chaos. In the end, identity is the soil. Performance is the fruit. If you want better outcomes, tend to the root. Don't just fix your edge, fix your self-view. Because markets will test your strategy, but they'll expose your identity. That's the work, and it's worth doing. You've heard the phrase, plan your trade and trade your plan. But Steenbarger goes deeper. He pushes traders to live their plan, to treat their daily process not just as preparation, but as performance. Because how you plan is how you think, and how you think is how you act. The final frontier of elite trading is not just execution, it's strategic consistency. Trading is decision-making under pressure, and without a clear, structured approach, your decisions will default to emotion. This is why Steenbarger emphasizes the need for process architecture, a personalized system of rules, rituals, and routines that create mental clarity and reduce cognitive load. You shouldn't be making decisions from scratch every day. You should be executing a plan you've stress-tested, refined, and internalized. The best traders think in probabilities, not predictions. They embrace uncertainty, but they don't wing it. They systematize everything that can be controlled. Prep time, risk allocation, setups, review protocol. That structure becomes their anchor, and it frees up mental bandwidth for adaptation and creativity. Steenbarger encourages traders to break their day into strategic components: pre-market prep, trade execution, midday adjustment, and end-of-day review. Each block serves a purpose. Each step is measurable. Over time, this turns chaos into order. It's not about rigidity, it's about rhythm. Structure doesn't restrict freedom, it enables it. When you know what to expect, you can show up more prepared. When you've outlined your risk parameters, you can trade without fear. When you've reviewed your playbook, you can trust your instincts. Steenbarger repeatedly emphasizes, success is not a product of genius. It's a byproduct of great preparation. That's why top traders treat each session like a performance. Just as a concert pianist warms up and visualizes each note, traders must prepare mentally and emotionally for what's to come. This includes mental rehearsal, walking through different scenarios in your mind before the market opens. How will you respond to a gap up? A sudden reversal? A midday breakout? Mental rehearsal reduces hesitation because you've already been there. Another crucial component of strategic consistency is flexibility within structure. Your system should include contingency plans. What if your A-plus setup doesn't appear? What if news shifts the market mid-session? What's your stop-loss policy on lower conviction trades? Steenbarger pushes traders to prepare not just for the ideal scenario, but the realistic ones. The goal isn't to be right, it's to be ready. This planning doesn't end when the bell rings. In fact, your post-market review is just as critical. Steenbarger advocates for a structured wrap-up each day. What did you do well? Where did you break process? What's one behavior you want to reinforce tomorrow? Over time, these reviews create a loop of refinement. Small improvements, tracked daily, create major gains. He also points out that planning isn't just for trade entries, it's for energy management. Do you know when your focus starts to drop? Do you have plans for how to recharge mid-session? Are you guarding your sleep, your diet, your breaks? Your mental capital is a limited resource. Protect it, refuel it, plan for it. Perhaps the most overlooked area in Steenbarger's planning framework is emotional forecasting. This means preparing not just for price action, but for how you'll likely feel during certain events. If you know you get anxious after 3 red trades, plan a walk. If you know FOMO hits during breakouts, preset a rule to delay entries. You cannot eliminate emotion, but you can anticipate it. And that's the core message of this section. Structure creates emotional margin. It gives you breathing room. It creates space between stimulus and response. That space is where your best trading lives. Without it, you react. With it, you choose. And trading is a game of choice. Steenbarger's elite performers build daily operating manuals for their minds. They know how to prep, how to execute, how to reset, how to recover. They don't chase setups. They pursue mastery. And mastery isn't built on luck. It's built on layers of intentional action, day after day. So what does this mean for you? It means your trading day needs to be designed. Your environment, your checklist, your triggers, your cooldowns. It means your performance is programmable. Not robotic, but reliable. You're building habits that serve you under pressure. And it means that every piece of your plan is a commitment, a reflection of who you are becoming. This isn't about control, it's about empowerment. Because the trader who shows up prepared will always outperform the one who shows up hopeful. Plan your trade, live your plan, execute with intent, and review with precision. That's strategic consistency. That's professional trading.